Greetings, I am Pillar Nexus, the Ancient Gladiator, today with more Pillar Loves Tabletop games with Warrior Knights. Yep, this this game is one I've missed having, so happy to get it again. So the goal of the game, you either need to control more than half of the cities in the kingdom, or have the most influence when the influence pool runs out. You get influence from controlling cities in the kingdom. Okay. So at the start of the game, you will have your Baron, their colored components, city control, fortified city control, special markers for the mercenary draft and expeditions funding. You will have 4 nobles at the start. Try not to lose them. You have your inflicts 100 extra casualties noble, your prevent 100 casualties noble, your +1 victory in battle noble, and your does not pay wages for troops if army size is under 450. The 450 does not count the nobles bonus. You will also start with regular troops and some random mercenaries. One random mercenary of 100 value, one random mercenary of 50 value, for a grand total of 400 troops to assign to your nobles at the start of the game. You can assign them all to one noble, you can assign them unevenly to all 4 of your nobles. But the only nobles you'll get to play during the setup are the ones that have the nobles assigned, or the troops assigned. At the start of the game, we'll have the influence pool set up 10 per player. There are variants to do less for a shorter game, like 8, or for a longer game, 12. Or if you want a brain-melting epic of a game that I seriously want to do because I'm a madman, 15 per player. A random player will be given the chairman of the assembly, and then another random player will be given the head of the church. Random anything is done with the fate cards. Random faction, possible revolt, random noble, battle abilities, battle results, expedition results, random city, random nationality, mercenaries. Alright. There will be 3 assembly cards set up. There'll be mercenaries set up. There's more down here. Based on the number of players +1. So, starting with the head of the assembly, players will place their strongholds anywhere that there's not already a stronghold or a city. And then starting with the last player to play their stronghold and going back around counterclockwise, players will play one of their nobles that has troops assigned that they can play it to anywhere that there's no opposing presence. So to their city, to a city to prepare to attack, or if nothing else, to their stronghold. Players will also start with the money of the realm, 15 crowns. And then we'll get into the planning phase. So the way this will work is there will be 3 stacks. There will be assorted neutral actions randomly added to each of the stacks. 2, 2, and 2 by the head of the assembly. And then each player will take their current action cards. Everyone starts with 12. You won't necessarily get them back at the end unless it sets off one of the special phases. What you're trying to do is plan what you want to do early in the round, in the middle of the round, later in the round. You'll take 2 cards, add them to 1 stack, 2 more add to the 2nd stack, and 2 to that of the 3. And then once everyone's done so, each stack will be shuffled individually so that no one can predict what's going to happen. And then we'll, starting with stack 1, that first card will be flipped over and resolved. Cards that are flipped over and resolved are moved to these slots, or in the case of versatile strategy, go back to the player's hand. And then once all the actions are done for the round, we'll go to the upkeep step, where players will get influence based on the cities they control. Every city you control that is not under siege is worth 1 influence to you, as long as your stronghold is currently on the board. If your stronghold's been removed from the board, you are not eliminated unless you're playing a variant. However, you will not gain any influence for that round. But after the influence is gained, you'll have a chance to put your stronghold out again somewhere. If the influence pool runs out and people still need to get influence, influence is taken from outside, and then players will count their influence to see who wins. Alternatively, if someone has more than half of the kingdom cities, then they'll win at this point in the round instead. Influence be damned. But anyway. But after that, it'll go to the next round, and so on. So, the actual actions themselves. There will be drafting soldiers. Place one of your markers on the mercenary track for free. So, there are these costs down here. If you do draft soldiers, you don't have to pay them. It is only with versatile strategy that you ever have to pay for the putting your marker there. They'll put it on the first left. Once there's a number of these on the track, up to the number of players, once it covers up that number, it'll trigger the mercenary draft. And players will pay for the wage value of which mercenaries they're buying. If you have multiple markers on the mercenary track, and there's multiples of the same nationality, you can pay all the wages of those mercenaries and take all those mercenaries of that nationality. You can then assign them to your nobles as you see fit. But you gotta have the money and you gotta have the markers to do all that. Even if you have like 2, you'd still take 2 of the same. But anyway, the draft soldiers action When it's resolved, goes to wages. Rally support. Gain 2 votes. These come into play during the assembly special phase. If you have more votes than any other baron, become the chairman of the assembly. And then once that was resolved, that goes to the assembly special. The chairman of the assembly decides the order of the agendas and is a tiebreaker for votes. But we'll get into that in a minute. There's levy taxes. Gain 1 crown for each of your areas that contains one of your nobles. So if you resolved this, like, let's say yellow resolves this, they have out 2 nobles, they get 2 crowns. It's money. Money is what you're going to need in this game for doing various things, like paying your mercenaries. Once levy taxes is resolved, it goes to taxation. Serve the church. Gain 1 faith. If you have more faith than any other baron, become the head of the church. It is possible for one person to become both the head of the church and the chairman of the assembly. Yeah. Funny as hell when that happens. Or frustrating. But these are used for blessing expeditions. We'll get to that. And dealing with events. Serve the church, when you resolve it, you can put it to any of the 3. Let's say assembly. Mobilize forces. You have the option of either moving any of your nobles into the area or starting a battle in the area, if they're already in that spot. You can do both. So the way movement works, you can move 1 space. If you cannot move through the mountains. If you start your turn on a road, you can move up to 3 spaces as long as you stay on that road. Strongholds do not block movement. Other nobles do. Other enemy cities also do. Unless you get their permission to cross through them. So, let's say we move here. When you move, you exhaust that noble. They cannot move again this turn. So, we flip it to exhausted. His power is not coming into play this turn. He can still defend himself and yeah. But starting a battle. So the way battles work, you'll draw a number of fate cards equal to your attacking strength. Every 100. So let's say it's got 200 troops. The noble, if he weren't exhausted, draws an additional 2, but then has to discard 2. So, let's say we pull those 2. So there's a victory and deal 100 casualties. Casualties get resolved first. So, if there's any prevention, they'll prevent casualties, and then it'll do 100 to the opposing force. If this drops our army value to 0, the noble dies. Dead nobles will lose forces based on the casualties. If the noble dies from something else, other than casualties, there's a possibility that a random nationality of their mercenaries will desert them. And then the noble will be transferred back to their stronghold. And their heir will take up the whatever troops they have left. Regular troops cannot die unless the noble has no heir, which will come up in events. Yeah. But if casualties don't knock out the defense or the attacker, then it goes to victories. If you have at least one victory more than your opponent, you have a partial victory, they retreat, you win the battle. If you have 2 victories more than they do, you kill them, and then there's that possibility of mercenaries deserting, and then they go back to the stronghold, or back home, and you win the battle. If it's a stalemate, then nothing happens. Nobody wins or loses. Oh yeah, another thing with moving is port movement. So if you're in an area with port, you can go to any other area that with a port. You might go overseas to go for the big money kingdoms or cities. Constantinople, Syracuse, Cadiz, Jerusalem, Alexandria, and Acre. These do not count as influence for the influence step, but that extra money is nice. But yeah, you'll move to the port, and then during the upkeep step will be resolved. You'll be in that area now. Anyway. So yeah. If you do one or the other, then it'll go in the appropriate. Movement goes to wages. Start a battle goes to assembly. If you do both, you have your choice. And then finally, there's versatile strategy. Gain 2 crowns, or gain 1 vote, or move one of your nobles, or start a battle, or pay to place your Baron marker on the mercenary track. It's a lot of options that aren't as good as, doing the appropriate action, but sometimes your stuff gets locked up. But it'll come back to your hand if it's resolved. Other things that will come up in the neutral side of things. We've got we have important event. The head of the church chooses a baron to resolve the top event card. They can pay 1 faith to target themselves with a great event, or another baron with a red event. So if it's green, they have to choose someone to get it unless they pay faith. If it's red, they have to pay faith to not suffer. Blue events are just general. Like, they're just random stuff like arson. Randomly choose an unraised city. And the city's raised and the nobles in it are killed. We've got good events like political favorite. Immediately receive 4 votes. And there's bad stuff like sudden death. Randomly choose one of your nobles, they die. Yeah, the events are crazy, but hey, at least you have some kind of estimation on what's coming up when it happens. Yeah, that's an important event. There are 3 important event cards. So there's a good chance of those coming up quite a bit. There's 2 fund expeditions. The chairman of the assembly may start an empty expedition. Each baron may invest up to 5 crowns, then advance all other expeditions. So let's say they start the Spice Islands. In order of worst to best return on investment. Sail on, you'll get your money back, or you'll get double your money back. The Spice Islands gets a little bit more. China gets a lot. However, the odds of your fleet being lost are the highest here to the lowest there. So yeah. You'll use your Baron marker and let's say Baron marker and up to 5 crowns. So that's going to be started. So I'm the only one who does it because I have the money. The head of the church, if they have faith, enough faith to do so, may spend their one faith to bless the expedition. Okay. And then other expeditions that were in play will proceed. The next time fund expeditions happens, the fleets that are already there move. Then it happens again. When it gets there, we'll resolve it. Flip the top card of the fate. And if it's fleet lost, all the money's gone. If it's no news, nothing happens. If it's 1x, you just get your money back. If it's 2x, you'll get twice your money back, and so on and so forth. If the expedition has been blessed, 2 cards are drawn, and the best thing that happens. So it's between fleet lost and 2x, so 2x is happening. Alright. But yeah, that'll clear. People will get their money back. And then some. Anyway. Muster forces. Barons may remove 1 or more casualty tokens from a single noble at a cost of 2 crowns per. Casualties stick with the noble. If they try to transfer their troops off to someone else in like the same spot, say I got casualties and I'm gonna pass off all my troops to them and then beat it. Any casualties I still have, go with them. But yeah, you'll have a chance to recover your forces, which helps. There's also upgrade defenses. Each baron may spend 4 crowns to fortify 1 city or repair 1 city. Cost of 2 crowns per breach. So one of the other things that happens with battle is if you attack a city. It'll go off their defenses. And every 100 casualties that would have happened to the city are represented with a breach token. And that stays there even if someone takes the city. Something you can do in battle is discard more than... discard some extra cards that might have, hurt the city. If you have enough victories to... If you think you have enough victories to take it. Fortifying your cities provides extra defense and extra income. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And finally, there's Shuffle the Fate deck. Because normally the cards will get pulled. They will go to the bottom. If you have the most cracked memory ever to remember what's been put on the bottom recently, that's impressive. But thankfully, there's this to make absolutely sure your memory won't save you from that happening. All right. So you've seen stuff go to the taxation, assembly, and wages steps slots. They're set off when there's a number of cards in them equal to twice the number of players. Taxation. You'll get money based on every city you control. You'll get money based on every concession you might have. One of the things that happens in Assembly is players might end up with a concession and receive one extra crown or some even more during the taxation step. You'll also get the money for your overseas cities as well, if you control them. Once a given stack is dealt with, all the cards will go back to their players so they can use them again. Assembly. Each player receives 1 vote plus 1 more for every city they have. Now, I think there's at least one thing I'm forgetting on this. Taxation. Yeah. There's something I forgot with battle. There's one other option you have, and that's siege. First off, your combined forces plus your noble have to exceed the defense of the city, and then you lay the siege token. Next turn, if nobody interrupts it, if you start another battle there, you can complete the siege and take control of the city. There are things that can lift the sieges as well, so bear that in mind. But alright, back to Assembly. Is 1 vote plus 1 vote for each kingdom city. Your overseas stuff doesn't count. Appoint acting chairman. If for some reason the head of the assembly is unable to participate, they assign someone else to be the chairman for the assembly. If there are any private motion cards in the agendas, those are dealt with. Barons a fate card is drawn for the private motion, and then they can do stuff like rescind the ban on a baron, vote to discard a law, charge your office into play, postpone the assembly, or vote on any agenda in the discard pile. But anyway, declare agenda order. So let's say I want to do this one first, then second, and third, and then vote. So the amount of votes you have at the start of the assembly phase is public knowledge. And then it goes secret as we vote on the agendas. Each player will take, a number of their votes that they have and put them into a closed hand, and then everyone will simultaneously reveal, starting with the chairman, I believe. And proceeding clockwise, barons declare how they're going to cast their votes. So let's say Master of the Royal Stables is an office. We are voting on the baron to receive it. Offices are assigned to a noble that you have in play. If they had a previous office, the old office is lost. It's discarded, and then they are now the office of this. So, Master of the Royal Stables, while not overseas, holder may move 2 areas or 4 areas on a road. So, I will vote, 3 votes for me, obviously. Or, if I'm trying to be diplomatic with another player, I might vote for them. That's one of the things to keep in mind in this game is that diplomacy aspect. So yeah, things like an office are voted for a baron to assign to one of their nobles. A charge goes to a baron. They can have up to 3 of them. If they would ever have a 4th, they have to discard one of the older charges. They cannot discard the charge that they would receive. Motions are either pass or fail, and then they resolve, and then they're discarded if they pass. Or they're just discarded if they fail. And then finally, laws are either pass or fail. If they pass, they're in play permanently. If they fail, they are discarded without effect. So, and then once everything's been voted on, we'll draw new agendas. And then the assembly cards will go back to their owner's hands. And finally, wages. That fills up. You will have to pay for all your mercenaries. Even your regular mercenaries, or your regular troops. You have to pay for your regular troops, period. If you can't pay for them because you don't have enough money, you still keep them, but all your other mercenaries are lost. If you have enough money to at least pay for your regular troops, then you see what you can pay for your remaining mercenaries. Anyone you don't pay for is returned to the mercenary stack. Everyone has the one noble. Does not pay wages for troops if any. If size is under 450. So anything under his banner is safe. As long as the army remains small. But once that's done, the cards will return to the players. And I believe I've already covered the mercenary draft. So that's it for all the special phases. But is there anything else I'm missing here? Oh yeah. You can, if you ever take over a city and you're just feeling particularly spiteful or you have a strategic reason for doing so, you can raze the city to the ground. Let's say we took this city, we're going to burn it to the ground. It's removed. It'll affect the end game of how many cities it'll take to control the kingdom at the end. But you'll get 3 times the monetary value of that city. So Altamont is worth 2, you'll get 6 crowns. If you really need money that badly, though, that's kind of brutal. But yeah, the game will continue on until the influence pool runs out or someone controls more than half the kingdom cities, and that player will be the winner. This game has an expansion. Crown and Glory. I thought this game was going to have the expansion when I bought it. I got it home. It didn't have it. I contacted the person I bought it from. They're going to send me the replacement. But until then, I'm going to try to cover what I remember from the expansion. Technological advancement cards. There's now a new token for the Scholar. Oops. And then there's new knowledge tokens that are used for purchasing advancements. You can have up to 3. They do various things, like in battle or other stuff. There's also garrisons and riot tokens, and then there's a whole other endgame scenario involving the king. Because whoever wins becomes the king. But it's possible to then have the king and then keep the game going through a second path of, we have the king, now what? And then they, if I remember right, they also replaced the Fate deck with something a little bit more unpredictable, and they add some stuff like retreating results. They add special mercenary characters. I'm pretty sure they add more agendas, more events, and the appropriate action cards for using for getting and spending the knowledge. I forget exactly what the scholar does, but their token is like a feather quill. But yeah, that is Warrior Knights. It is. Next year is gonna be the 40th anniversary of this game. The original Warrior Knights by Games Workshop was released in 1985. I don't know the exact month, but next year would make 40 years since that original game released. This is the Fantasy Flight version. It released in 2006. I have fond memories of this game, and I'm glad to have it in my collection again. Why the fuck do I love this gigantic, crazy chaos game of warfare and politics and all this other shit? This is one hell of a game to figure out, because you're gonna have to think long term. There's also this ticking clock of the influence. There's also the craziness of the agendas. There's this madness. The dick move of pull off the mercenary draft and then set off wages before anyone's gotten the money to pay their people, and just be an absolute dick that way is amusing to me. It's just so fucking awesome, you know? How many other games are like this these days? In a way, the other like major contemporaries for this game have been in more recent years, like the Game of Thrones board game and Twilight Imperium and more sci-fi approach. But there's just something about the whole historical, you know, it's kind of historical cities and the whole medieval setting, and I don't know, it's crazy, but I love it. And I really want to play the ever living crap out of this game again, like the old days. So there's a good chance this is probably going to be the last board game I add to my collection. I can't say it with certainty because there's still the board game league to do. There's still my stuff waiting to be put on the used shelf of the game store to sell off and maybe get another game that way. But this is probably going to be the last one. Most likely. And I just want what I'm calling my last game for the collection to be something really special. And this is a game that basically runs through the veins of my game designer heart, honestly. I think this is something that lit a fire within me to really give designing board games another shot in the past. And that flame was kind of dying out for a while lately. And looking through this again, I feel that fire burning once more. So I really want to get back into game design. So this is Warrior Knights. If you can find a copy, play it and enjoy it. Hope you love it as much as I do. I've probably missed some rules details, and I'm sorry for that. But I think I've gotten across the big picture of the game's design. And I just hope more people will find this game and enjoy it. Thank you very much for watching. This is Pillar Nexus. I will see you next time.